Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to my review of the Ecovacs OZMO N8 Pro Plus robot vacuum. After putting it through all kinds of tests this week, I am more than a little bit impressed. It's packed with all the features I want in a high-end robot vacuum, including some new tech, like its obstacle avoidance sensors that I think are a game changer. It's also being sold at a much reduced price compared to similar robot vacuums from Ecovacs. It's not perfect, and there are some things to complain about, but I think it will be a strong contender for the best auto-empty robot vacuum this year. There's a lot to cover with this one, so links in the description, and let's get started. Let's get you oriented with the model numbers first. I am testing the N8 Pro Plus. The plus in the name means that it comes with the auto-empty bin in the package, but you can get the robot only if you wanted to. There is also the N8 without the Pro in the name. The Pro means it has the obstacle avoidance sensors in the front of the robot, which I will talk a lot about later in this review. The N8 Pro has those sensors in the front, the N8 does not. Starting off with the basics, with the power specs, where I test its airflow and suction on various settings, it did incredibly good. Its airflow on max power was 24 CFM, which is tied with the Ecovacs T8 and Ecovacs 950 for the highest scores I have ever seen, with the average being 16 CFM. So it's got a lot of power, and its power really did show up in places like the crevice pickup test, where it did much better than average, even better than most premium robot vacuums. With surface pickup, it was able to get all the debris types and sizes from fine to extra large on both hard floors and carpet. It has two side brushes, which I think are better than one, and they worked well together with the main brush roller and its suction. It did well with heavy debris on hard floors, which can be a challenge for some robot vacuums. For example, it did exceptionally well in the kitty litter test, though you may need to use a higher power setting for super heavy debris on hard floors. With the carpet deep clean test, where I try to determine how well it picks up deep down embedded sand in thicker carpets, it did about average. Literally, it scored the same as the average score of the other robots I have data for on this test, which is good, don't get me wrong, but I was hoping for a little better score with all that power. The Deebot N8 Pro uses LiDAR, the spinning invisible laser on the top of the unit, for its main navigation, which I found to be very fast at mapping both my studio and my house, both of which were mapped on the first try, and I found that it was efficient with coverage, getting near 100% coverage in both the small and large room tests. I do think it was a little bit slower than normal on initial runs, but more on that in a minute. It has a lot of mapping features on the app, including no-go lines, where you draw lines or boxes on the map to keep the robot from going where you don't want it to go. It has no mop zones, which is the same thing but for use with the mopping feature, which I'll talk about later. You can name and divide the rooms, so you can tell it to clean one room and not the other, or even to combine this with the scheduling feature to clean some rooms some days and other rooms other days. It also will save two maps, like one for the upstairs and one for the downstairs. You don't need an additional bin for this, but you can buy an additional one if you wanted to. Speaking of the auto-empty dustbin, when the robot is finished and returns to the base, a motor in the base automatically kicks in and it sucks the contents of the robot's dustbin into a bag. Two bags are included in the box, and Ecovacs says one bag will hold 30 full bins worth of debris. Basically a month if you cleaned every day. I think these auto-empty bins are the future of the industry since they are so convenient, but time will tell. Though the new N8 Pro Plus seems to use the exact same auto-empty dustbin as the previous T8 AIVI, and it seems to empty itself the same way, that is via two little doors on the bottom of the robot's dustbin, I think it may be a bit better than the T8 since I haven't had any of the clogging issues with pet hair yet on the N8 Pro Plus that I had with the T8 AIVI, though I can't think of why it would be better considering it all looks the same. Just a quick recap on that, the old version would be prone to hair clogs from my two cats if I didn't run the robot at least twice a week. If I ran it twice a week, the hair buildup wouldn't be so bad and it would not clog. If I ran it only once a week, it would. Like I said, it hasn't done that yet with this new one, but I'm sure your mileage may vary. If you have a lot of pets who shed a lot, you might need to run it every day to keep up with it all. Let's move on to obstacle avoidance, which I think is the star of of the show. Let me back up and say that the previous two Ecovacs flagships have used LiDAR in combination with a front-mounted camera, which they used for obstacle avoidance. The camera in those cases would recognize obstacles that would be too low for the top-mounted laser to sense or too light to engage the bump sensor, like for cords and socks and other stuff. This new N8 Pro has done away with the camera and instead appears to have 3 front-mounted lasers pointed in specific directions, which you can't see with the naked eye, but you can see when filmed with a cell phone. In any case, in the various tests, I found this to be really good at obstacle avoidance. Not only does it successfully avoid those low and light obstacles better than I think the camera versions, but when it encounters them, it spins around a little bit and takes a second to fully map the object. This does cause a slight slowdown in overall navigation time, especially for the first mapping run of your house, but the net result is that it rarely even disturbs the object it's trying to avoid. This is especially crucial for pet messes where you don't want the robot to touch it at all. In general, the N8 Pro with its lasers seemed to be more accurate overall with obstacle avoidance than the T8 AI-VI with its camera, and if you don't need AI to do the same thing, then it saves a lot of money. As I said though, this method really slows down that first mapping run, and it makes it seem like the robot is not following a logical path. In fact, in the initial mapping of my house, all the extra recognizing of obstacles made it run out of battery life before it finished. So it returned to the base, automatically recharged, and finished the mapping, still technically on its first run. And by its second full run, its map was much more efficient and logical, as most of the initial mapping of permanent objects was done. Moving on to the mopping attachment, it has a large water reservoir tank, which I basically leave in the robot full time, but you attach a mopping plate to that when you want it to mop. It has an electric pump where you can change the water flow level in the app. In the tests I did, I kept it on its second highest level to reduce slipping. I also tested the washable microfiber pad as well as the disposable pads that come with it. I tested it with dried on coffee, grape juice, and V8 stains, and found that it got the lighter coffee stains very quickly, but it took a second run to clean the heavier stains like the grape juice and V8. All in all, it was better than average, not surprisingly, about the same as the T8 since they use the same hardware. Though it was close, it seemed like the disposable pads worked better than the microfiber pad did. A couple nitpicks I had with it were the battery life and hair tangles. The battery is smaller than the T8's, 3200 milliamp hours to the T8's 5200. Also, it does have recharge and resume, where if it does run out of battery, it will automatically return to the base, recharge, and resume where it left off. So battery life is not as big of a deal with smart robots like these. The other con was hair tangles. I've never thought that Ecovacs had particularly good brush rollers, and nothing much has changed there. It's just something to keep in mind that removing and cleaning these brushes is a part of your regular maintenance. The price of the N8 Pro Plus, which comes with the auto-empty dustbin, is cheaper than the T8 AI-VI was with just the robot when it came out. I mean, we're talking about a major shift in price structure for the good. And considering that I actually think that the new N8 Pro Plus is better overall than the T8, and as I said, it's probably a shoo-in for best robot vacuum in the premium price range this year, but there are a lot of others on the way, so we will see. Links in the description, and be sure to subscribe to Vacuum Wars before you leave. Thanks for watching.